What's up, guys? I haven't done a YouTube live. I think I've only done one YouTube live in the entire time we've been on YouTube, but we're kind of doing a thing right now across different platforms. We wanted to try it out for a little bit. We're going to go live on YouTube here pretty regularly for the next couple of days, maybe the next couple of weeks, and cover a couple of topics in addition to some new videos that we're putting out. If you see this, I don't even know for sure how this works. Like if this posts, I got to figure out my way around YouTube Live. But if you see this later, we are doing a theater course that we're launching at the end of this week. I left a link in the description, in the comments. You can do an early bird sign up. There'll be some bigger discounts for the theater course if you're part of the early bird that signs up. So there'll be like a 2-hour window on Friday night. We'll launch it, and it'll be like a 2-hour window. So I posted that in the links. I'll talk about that more later this week. But anyway, the point of this live is we wanted to chat about panelized lighting and wireless lighting. It's something we're getting asked about a lot. And one of the big things that keeps coming up that I kind of wanted to address is clients are saying, hey, I talked with a local dealer, or I read a blog on a blog, or I watched a video on YouTube, and I'm hearing that panelized lighting is 30% more than wireless lighting. And then that's the end of the discussion. They don't even want to consider panelized lighting anymore, and that's kind of misleading. And so it's something that I want to kind of talk through for just a minute. But real quick, backing up, if you're unfamiliar with the concept of panelized lighting, here's kind of what it is. So wireless lighting is kind of a misnomer. It makes everybody think that it's literally wireless. All wireless lighting means is that we take an existing light switch or an existing dimmer that's already hardwired, like a traditional dimmer. Everything's hardwired. The light switch is actually hardwired to the light fixture overhead, and you're able to turn it on and off. We replace that light switch or dimmer with a smart light switch or a smart dimmer. And the communication to that dimmer from our phone or from like Alexa, the communication is wireless, but the control is still hardwired. So kind of a misnomer, but wireless is great in retrofits, but it's also good if you just want to scale your lighting. So what I mean by scale is, like, you first move into the home, and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to put 10 light switches into the home, and then 6 months down the road, I might buy 10 more light switches, and then 10 more light switches, and over the course of 2-3 years, maybe you're going to cover the entire home with wireless lighting. Okay, that's what we see a lot. There's tons of wireless solutions out there. Control4's got its own tech. Lutron's got a number of different solutions: Radio Raw Select, Lutron Cassetta. You've got your Z-Wave solutions that you're going to see with Amazon Alexa or Google Home. So tons of wireless lighting solutions, but conceptually it's the same, okay? It's a hardwired light switch or a dimmer. Then you've got wireless communication to that dimmer or switch. Panelized lighting, there are a number of benefits to it, but the primary benefit is its effects on aesthetics and the design of the home. So if you can imagine like a kitchen backsplash that has 6 keypads on it, or 6 dimmers on it. One's the can lights, one's the rope lights, one's the toe kick, one's the pendant lights, okay? One's the actual cabinet lights. You can replace all of those 6 dimmers or switches with a single keypad. And with a keypad, I don't mean like a touchscreen keypad. It looks the same as a light switch, but it's got 6 buttons on it. The top one usually runs a fixture in that room, and the other 5 buttons are what we call scene controllers, and they're pointing back to other scenes, other lights, okay, that have been panelized. And panelized just means that we've taken those light switches or those dimmers and we've moved them to a can close to the breaker box. And instead of you seeing a light switch on the wall, we've literally just moved that light switch into a can out of sight. And instead of it being a light switch, it's something called a module, and it runs 8 light switches in one module. Okay, but like if you were to have an electrician draw it out for you, it's the exact same thing as a light switch or a dimmer. We've just taken the dimmer from the wall, put it in a can, something we call a module, and it has the ability to flip that light switch on and off, or dim that fixture on and off, okay? So that's what panelized lighting does. And the main benefit of panelized lighting is that it allows you to take all the wall clutter, or what a lot of designers call wall acne, off the wall and reduce it, so that instead of having banks of light switches or banks of dimmers throughout the home, you just get a single keypad in the room, or where needed, maybe you have a keypad on each entrance of the room. And otherwise, all the additional light switches are replaced. And you see this throughout the home. People say, well, why would I use that in my bathroom, for example? Well, your bathroom's got ceiling lights. The shower lights are probably separate from the sink lights. Then you've got a fan. You probably have wall sconces. So all of a sudden we have 4 light switches in a bathroom. If you panelize that, you can take that down to 1 keypad. Same thing with bedrooms. You probably have a ceiling fan. Then you have ceiling can lights. That's 2 light switches. You can reduce that to 1. Okay, so that's panelized lighting. So people always say, well, I've talked to a dealer or I did some research on Google and panelized lighting is going to take 30% more. That's the number we keep hearing is 30%. I'm not sure why, but we keep hearing this number 30% more than wireless lighting. So I'm not going to go the panelized lighting route. And this isn't like this video isn't to like trump the horn for panelized lighting and say, hey, go do panelized lighting. We like panelized lighting. We think it's cool when you do it, but we're kind of indifferent. It's actually a little bit of a pain from a coordination standpoint because we have to coordinate with the electricians unless a dealer happens to be an electrician as well. And there's some pain points there with the coordination. For you, the client, it works great. For the installer, it's a little bit of a pain. So it's not something that we totally push, but it is a really cool product. And it seems like a lot of people are avoiding it because they're getting misinformation about its cost. So here's kind of what I want to point out to you for just a minute. Okay, and then I'm still trying to figure my way around this. I don't know if anybody's asked any questions. I can't see. So if you ask some questions, Eddie, what's up, man? It's good to see you on here. That answers my question, Eddie. So thanks. I didn't know if I was going to see anything if somebody leaves a comment. I'm learning my way around. Okay, so if you do panelized lighting, let's start with wireless lighting. Okay, and I'm going to talk about Control 4. That doesn't mean you have to use Control 4, but I'm just going to stay in the Control 4 house. Okay. So Control 4 dimmer is $180. Okay, they have some newer dimmers that are less expensive, but traditionally a Control 4 dimmer is $180. That's consistent with Lutron's price points and Crestron's price points and Savant's price points. $180 for a dimmer. Really, really consistent price point on the higher end lighting control. Okay, so $180 for a dimmer. If I have 40 dimmers in a home, I'm forgetting my math now, but if I have 40 dimmers in a home at $180, it works out to something like $7,200, okay? And then in addition to those 40 dimmers, I'm gonna have something like a keypad per room. Well, let me back up so this makes sense. I had a client inside of our Time U group on Facebook tell me that he'd been told that it was 30% more. So I went and I looked at the numbers from a recent project we just did. And that recent project had 40 locations with a dimmer or a light switch and 35 keypads, okay? So I went and I said, okay, well, what would it cost us? And that was all panelized, 40 dimmers and 35 keypads. And I said, well, what would it cost to do it both directions? Okay. So in the wireless world, we would have 40 dimmers. That's going to work out to around $7,200. And then we're going to have 35 keypads. The 35 keypads are about $250 each. Okay. And I forget the numbers, but that worked out to like $8,000. And ballpark, we're about $15,000 for lighting if we did the entire home with wireless lighting and keypads. Okay, for panelized lighting, what happens is instead of a dimmer, you have what's called a module, and that module takes or replaces 8 dimmers. So I have one dimmer, and then with a dimmer module for panelized lighting, I'm replacing 8 of those dimmers. Okay, well, that dimmer module runs about $1,200, but it replaces 8 dimmers. Okay. So it's in the ballpark of $150 per dimmer instead of $180 per dimmer. So there's already some volume breaks when we're doing the panelized lighting. And when we run it all out, we do 5 sets of dimmer modules. And then again, we do our 35 keypads that are also about $250 each with panelized lighting, including some of the extras like the actual panel that all the modules go inside of. It works out to about $15,000 and some change. Now, both instances are before programming. And absolutely, panelized lighting is going to take a little bit more time and a little bit more effort in programming than wireless lighting. But my point is, the hardware prices work out very, very close. There's not a 30% difference. So here's what's really going on, and this is the point I always want people to understand when they're looking at panelized lighting. Panelized lighting is more expensive, not because the hardware or the programming is more expensive, but because usually you're doing more scale and more volume, okay? If you take a wireless lighting solution and you do 5 light switches, you're going to pay $1,000. But if you take that same wireless lighting tech and you expand it to 40 light switches and 35 keypads, you're going to spend $15,000. But that's what the panelized lighting price was. The difference is in the volume. Usually when people do wireless lighting, they don't cover as much of the home. They pick 1 or 2 rooms like the kitchen and the master, maybe some outdoor lighting for security reasons, and that's it. And they plan on expanding that down the road a little bit at a time. It's totally okay. When people do panelized lighting, they usually do a significant portion of the home, if not the entire home. So the difference in price has much more to do with the scale, meaning the amount of light that you are trying to control, than it does with the hardware. And maybe that doesn't mean anything to you. Maybe you're looking at it going, well, sure, it's still more expensive. But what we find is clients come in and they go, I'm really interested in panelized lighting, but I heard that it's 30% more, so I'm just not even going to consider it. And then when we start investigating it with them, they're like, oh, you know what? It's actually much more in line with the wireless lighting, and I plan on covering all of my lights in my home over the next 2 years, 3 years. I see that if I go the wireless route, I'm going to spend $15,000 over the course of 2 or 3 years. And now maybe I do want to figure out a way to just go the panelized right out front because of all the other benefits, the aesthetic elements that I get by going panelized. That makes sense? What's up, Bobby? So that's kind of where we're at with panelized lighting. So as for whether or not you should do panelized lighting, the one thing I would tell you is that panelized lighting can be a hybrid. So more often than not, when we see panelized lighting, people do the entire home. But we're starting to see a lot of clients come in and they do like the main level. So wherever they're going to be living, a lot of times we see a main level is where the master bedroom is, and there's maybe kids' bedrooms above or in the basement. Maybe there's a theater in the basement, and they'll panelize the main floor and the master. And then if there's one other area in the house that's important, like a theater or a game room, they might panelize that. Everything else in the home, they'll either not do lighting control at all, or if they do lighting control, they'll do the wireless. So now they've got kind of a hybrid. So, maybe they don't want to spend 15 to 20 grand on panelized right out of the gates, but they're going to panelize the areas where they care about the aesthetics and that really clean look, and where they're going to be using their home most, which is the main living areas of the home. And then they'll come back and they'll say, okay, now we want to do wireless lighting and kind of round it out in some of the other areas. And that's the two work in tandem and work very seamlessly together. So that can happen, and it works really, really well. So it's worth looking into. In any event, that was it. We're going to do a bunch more of these and kind of hop on. If you're just hopping on, I mentioned end of this week, just so you all know, we're doing a home theater course that we're going to launch. I've been dragging my heels on it for about 2 years, and we're going to go live this Friday with one. So there's a link in the description that lets you go sign up for the early bird notification if you care and want to be notified Friday. There'll be like a 2-hour window to sign up. And we'll have some extra goodies in that first 2 hours, and then after that, it'll just kind of go out generally to everybody else. So if that's interesting to you, you can hit that link, and we'll do a bunch more of these throughout the week, cover some other topics. Love to see as many of you here as we can. Hopefully we can do more of these lives. So I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you around.